Most people still think Claude is just another chatbot. Open a window, type a prompt, get an answer, close the window. But that version of Claude is quietly becoming obsolete. Because Claude can now remember your work automatically, access your files, run tasks remotely, and increasingly help execute work with far less manual supervision than before. The real story isn't that Claude became smarter. The real story is that Claude is beginning to move from answering questions to doing work. And if you're still using it like a chatbot, you're missing one of the biggest shifts happening in knowledge work right now. Because the first era of AI was information. You asked questions, AI answered. The second era was generation. AI created text, images, and code. But we may now be entering a third era, delegation, where AI doesn't just generate, it remembers, it executes, and increasingly helps carry out work on your behalf. In this video, I'm going to show you how to transform Claude from a simple conversation tool into your personal AI operating system. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to build a system that remembers your business, understands your context, automates repetitive work, and increasingly behaves like an additional team member. We only need 4 simple layers: memory, context, delegation, and automation. Let's build them. The first layer is memory. This may be the biggest change most people still haven't fully appreciated. For years, AI had amnesia. Every conversation started from zero. Every new session meant repeating yourself, explaining your business, your audience, your preferences, and your writing style over and over again. That friction was enormous. But Claude can now automatically remember relevant information from previous conversations and generate a memory profile that persists across sessions. And here's the part most people miss. Claude's memory capabilities are now broadly available across plans, including the free tier. You don't need to set anything up. You don't need to pay extra for it. It's increasingly working in the background right now. This changes everything. Because leverage doesn't come from asking better questions. Leverage comes from not having to repeat yourself. The more Claude understands your work, the less time you spend rebuilding context. Think about it. Your services, your audience, your projects, your preferred writing style, and your business rules. All of this slowly becomes part of Claude's working memory. This is no longer a temporary conversation. It is becoming an ongoing relationship. Open your settings and review your memory preferences. Pay attention to what Claude is remembering. Refine it. Correct it. Because this memory layer becomes the foundation for everything else. The second layer is context. Memory tells Claude who you are. Context tells Claude what you're currently working on. This is where projects become incredibly powerful. Most people still use one giant chat window for everything. Content, research, client work, and business planning, all mixed together. This creates confusion. Projects solve this problem. Create dedicated work environments. One for content, one for clients, one for research, and one for strategy. Upload your files, brand guides, customer avatars, pricing documents, offer sheets, and research notes. The more context Claude has, the better its outputs become. Think about how many times you've explained your business to AI. Now imagine never having to explain any of that again. That is the real value of projects. You're building environments that retain context, and context compounds. The third layer is delegation. Until now, AI has mostly been reactive. You ask, it responds. You ask again, it responds again. But delegation changes that relationship entirely. Because Claude is increasingly moving beyond answering questions and toward performing work. Cowork changes the relationship entirely. Instead of asking Claude, "How should I organize these files?" you can increasingly ask, "Organize these files." Instead of, "How should I summarize this information?" you can increasingly ask, "Read these documents and prepare a report." This is a fundamental shift. You're no longer simply asking AI for advice, you're assigning work. Think about the implications for research, reports, document preparation, organization, and administrative tasks. For the first time, AI is increasingly capable of handling certain categories of work rather than merely discussing them. And this is where many people are underestimating Claude. Because while everyone debates model intelligence, Claude is quietly becoming more useful, more practical, and more integrated into real workflows. This is the difference between an assistant and a system. Systems reduce work. Systems remove friction. Systems create leverage. and Claude is slowly moving in that direction. Finally, we reach the fourth layer, automation. This is where leverage becomes exponential. Because Claude can increasingly run tasks remotely through routines. Think about this. Every Monday morning, you receive a summary of important industry news. Every Friday afternoon, Claude reviews a folder and prepares a status report. Every evening, it checks a document repository and generates a research brief for the next day. You set these processes up once. Claude executes them remotely through routines. Your laptop doesn't need to remain open. You don't need to manually trigger every step. This isn't unlimited autonomy. It's scheduled delegation. Think of it less like replacing an employee and more like hiring an extremely fast intern that never forgets instructions. And that alone can remove enormous amounts of repetitive work from your week. This changes the economics of knowledge work. Because the biggest bottleneck in most businesses is not intelligence, it is human attention. Automation allows you to extend your attention, to delegate routine cognitive work, and to remove friction from recurring processes. This is not about replacing humans, it is about removing repetitive work. And the businesses that understand this early may gain enormous leverage. Most people think AI saves time because it writes faster. That is not the biggest advantage. The biggest advantage is delegation. The ability to stop doing low-value repetitive work. The ability to create systems that remember, systems that organize, and systems that execute. Because eventually, everyone will have access to similar models. Intelligence itself is rapidly becoming commoditized. Systems are becoming the real moat. The future of work probably won't belong to the people using the most AI tools. It will belong to the people building the best AI systems. The people who understand memory, context, delegation, and automation. Build these 4 layers once, refine them continuously, and slowly, Claude stops becoming another application on your computer. It becomes part of how you work, an extension of your thinking, a digital teammate, and an AI operating system. And the people who learn to build these systems early may have an enormous advantage over everyone else. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most people. Because most people are still experimenting with AI. You're learning how to build systems, and systems create leverage. I've also put together my personal collection of 100 production-ready prompts covering content creation, research, client work, business operations, and workflow automation. You can grab it from the link below. But remember, prompts alone are not the advantage. Everyone eventually gets access to the same tools. The real advantage comes from the systems you build around them. The people who win in the next decade won't necessarily be the smartest. They'll be the people who learn how to delegate work to machines more effectively than everyone else. And I want to know from you, if Claude could permanently remove one repetitive task from your life starting tomorrow, what would it be? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you enjoy this type of content, subscribe. Because here on EvolveAI, we don't chase AI hype. We focus on practical systems, real leverage, and the future of how humans will work alongside intelligent machines. This is EvolveAI, practical systems, real leverage, no noise. See you in the next video.